It started, as these things often do, with a misunderstanding, a blast crater, and a lot of swearing. Lieutenant Nick Calder was not known for following orders, not really. He was known for following them creatively, which is how he ended up face first in the ruins of Precursor Site Theta 7, buried under a few tons of debris and dust, with a smoldering energy rifle and a broken ankle. His unit had been told to scout the perimeter, not poke around in ancient alien tombs with blinking red glyphs that screamed "Don't touch" in 27 extinct dialects. Naturally, Nick touched something. Specifically, he touched it, a sleek, obsidian battlesuit that seemed more like a piece of living architecture than a piece of armor. Every sensor had declared it inert. Every archaeologist had insisted it was dormant. It was encased in a containment field woven with 20 layers of failsafes and containment glyphs. In short, everyone thought it was perfectly safe. Nick, who had a deep mistrust of anything labeled safe by government-employed scientists, reached through a flickering glyph and cracked a joke. "Nice coffin. Guess the owner skipped leg day." That was the moment everything changed. The suit responded to his voice, not the words, but the tone, the cadence. Sarcasm, humor, something ancient and dangerous stirred, and the containment field dissolved like mist in the sun. He should have run, or maybe screamed. But Nick was Nick, and what he did instead was mutter, "Well, that's probably not great," right before the suit launched itself onto him. There was no dramatic montage, no sudden glow of transformation. Just a flash of blinding light, a sudden absence of gravity, and then silence. Deep, planetary silence, the kind that hums in the bones. When Nick woke up, he was standing upright, the pain in his leg gone, his rifle nowhere to be found, and the suit was him. It didn't feel like armor. It felt like memory, like emotion, like fury compacted into layers of unknown metal and dark thought. He heard a voice then. Not in his ears, inside. "Pilot accepted." That was the last coherent thing he heard before the screaming started. Not his. The scientists. The rest of the recon team. The galaxy, eventually. Because the precursor battlesuit, known as Vyreon, hadn't accepted a pilot in over 100,000 years. Not because no one had tried, thousands had. All had failed. Most had died. A few disintegrated into particles so small they could only be described as regret-shaped. But somehow Nick Calder, a lieutenant with a minor in military history and a major in biting sarcasm, had bonded with the galaxy's most dangerous relic. The military did what they always did when something inexplicable happened. They panicked. Then they argued. Then they built a containment facility 3 miles underground with a "Do Not Enter" sign the size of a cruiser. Nick didn't care. He was too busy negotiating with the battlesuit living in his nervous system. Vyreon was not what he'd expected. He'd assumed malevolent AI. Instead, it was more like a tired archivist with bloodlust management issues. It communicated in emotion, in abstract impressions. When Nick thought about war, Vyreon responded with vivid flashes of battles fought in atmospheres long gone. When he made a snarky comment about its taste in interior design, because the suit's internal HUD looked like a Goth cathedral having a bad day, it reacted by tightening around his ribs like a disapproving corset. Still, they reached an understanding of sorts. Vyreon wanted to exist again, to fight again. Nick wanted to go home, eat a cheeseburger, and possibly sleep for a decade. Neither got what they wanted. News spread. Fast. Across human space and beyond. The Galactic Accord, a fragile coalition of 17 spacefaring civilizations, called an emergency summit. Nick was invited. Well, invited in the same way a meteor is invited to crash into a planet. He arrived in orbit over Arkan's Spiral, the Accord's capital station, aboard a shuttle modified to withstand, in theory, the full force of an ancient god weapon sneezing. The reaction was immediate. Some species tried to assassinate him before the shuttle landed. Others tried to worship him. A few attempted both, just to cover their bases. Nick, clad in a suit that could level cities with a thought, ordered an espresso and told everyone to relax. It didn't help. A particularly bold diplomat from the SHVAR collective accused humanity of weaponizing an ancient horror. Nick blinked slowly and said, "Buddy, I tripped and fell into the apocalypse. I'm as confused as you are." That quote made it onto 37 different memes before the end of the summit. The Accord debated what to do. Some argued for immediate disintegration. Others suggested exile. A few wanted to cut Nick open and study the bonding interface, preferably while he was still conscious. But none could ignore the fact that Vyreon had chosen him. Not out of genetic superiority or some mystical prophecy, but, according to Nick, because he was the first idiot with the right amount of personality dysfunction. No one liked that explanation, especially the psychologists. What no one had anticipated was Vyreon's voice. It wasn't just speaking to Nick. It had begun to speak to the Accord, through broadcast frequencies, through dreams, through data networks long thought secure. It wasn't threatening, not at first. It was offering counsel, warnings, glimpses of ancient enemies stirring in forgotten corners of the cosmos. It turned out Vyreon hadn't just been a weapon. It had been a watchdog, a final defense against an ancient extinction event known only as the Silence. No one alive knew what that meant, but Vyreon did. It had seen galaxies go dark, civilizations vanish. It had been built to prevent that, or at least delay it. Its last pilots had failed. It had gone dormant. Until Nick. Naturally, this revelation turned the chaos up to 11. Nick became a celebrity, a diplomatic weapon, and a potential war crime all rolled into one. He hated it. He especially hated the part where he had to attend official meetings in full armor because no one trusted him not to explode without it. He became fluent in the bureaucratic dialect of interspecies panic. He gave sarcastic TED Talks to terrified planetary councils. He did diplomatic outreach in war zones, escorted by drones the size of elephants, all while cracking jokes about galactic extinction like a stand-up comic with a death wish. The worst part was that Vyreon liked him. Or rather, it tolerated him more than it had tolerated anyone else in millennia. It found his irreverence stabilizing, his cynicism useful. Where others had tried to wield the suit like a weapon, Nick treated it like a smart, overbearing roommate. You know, he once told Vyreon mid-orbit over a disputed moon, "You really need a hobby that doesn't involve planetary annihilation." "I had one," Vyreon replied, for the first time in a voice not filtered through sensors. "It was called peace. No one liked it, so they became a pair in a way. The galaxy's most reluctant hero and its most dangerous artifact. Together they responded to crises, pirates, civil wars, creeping anomalies from dark space. Nick became the suit's voice. Vyreon became his shield. They weren't always welcomed. They weren't always right. But they were feared. And sometimes that was enough to stop a war before it started. Eventually, of course, the Silence came. It didn't arrive with armadas or fleets. It arrived in the form of a transmission, 15 seconds long, from the galactic rim. It contained no data, no sound, just a signal that devoured every system it touched. Stations blinked out. Ships went silent. Entire sectors vanished. The Accord panicked. Vyreon did not. "It's begun," the suit told Nick. "But this time we are not alone." That was the moment Nick realized Vyreon had been waiting. Not for a warrior, for a mirror. Someone broken, someone strange, someone too foolish to be afraid. The perfect foil to face the end of all things. So they went to meet it, not as soldier in armor, but as partners, as the last joke in the face of the void. Because when the universe sends its final darkness, sometimes all you can do is laugh, loudly, defiantly, in the voice of a sarcastic human wrapped in a god's skeleton, flipping the bird at extinction. And sometimes that's enough.